ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies, welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day. Episode 55.
The actual 55.
The actual 55. And we're going to talk to Allyson, or Allie Watson. She works in local community development and is a board member of the Wisconsin Downtown Action Council, and you focus on pedestrian and bike safety. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
And so this is timely, I think, to have you on because, you know, we have... there's money being kind of floated around in the city of Green Bay for various projects. We're not going to
floated around. That is a very, very interesting.
Okay, so infrastructure that was part of a stadium tax refund that the city received as an overage. Blah blah blah. We know this, and so there are significant needs, and I feel very confident saying this, in the city of Green Bay with regards to pedestrian and bike safety, traffic calming measures that, you know, people just aren't really on board with. And there's a lot happening. So you had a recent experience last spring. There was an event for Current called the Support Our Urban Projects event, and it was a fantastic event. Actually, they had another one recently, but they had people gather and have some soup and some drinks, and they had the public come in and I guess sit down and have you listen to some proposals on some projects, some community-minded projects. You won last year for smart crossings, and smart, the SM was lowercase and the art was uppercase because of the fact that, you know, it was an art. Basically, a public art form. These
and sadomasochist.
Yeah, not quite. Well, soon to find out. So then the idea was, and go ahead and tell us what your proposal was. That you had an overwhelming amount of people support that. You obviously won. So we know that this is the project that is definitely has support out there in the community. But somehow it didn't happen, and I'd like you to take it from there.
Yeah, that was a pretty good summary. So I had proposed Smart Crossings, which was a public arts project that would really reiterate where pedestrian spaces are. I'm a pedestrian on a daily basis. I work in downtown Green Bay, and within the last year, I actually started commuting by bike sometimes, and it's definitely changed the way I interact with other motorists and pedestrians, and it's really heightened my awareness to the lack of defined spaces. We do have the white traditional zebra stripe crosswalks within our community, but they're largely misunderstood, misinterpreted, and sometimes ignored by motorists.
Many times ignored.
I don't know how much of it is intentional as it is cultural in our community, but I felt that this was a low-cost project that could do a better job of reinforcing where pedestrians belong and where vehicles do not. So I had proposed that the allotted amount, which was based partially on an initial input of $500 from YPAC, the Young Professional Advisory Council in the mayor's office, and then the rest was actually crowdfunded that evening. So the amount was around $1,000, and I had proposed that it be used to do temporary murals within the crosswalks, kind of creative plays that still incorporated that traditional white zebra stripe design that's required by the DOT, but made it a little bit more playful, a little bit more artistic, and was a way of paying homage to the cultural distinctions in our different neighborhoods downtown. And I specifically had hoped to put these on unprotected intersections on heavy pedestrian corridors in the downtown.
And this isn't an idea that is unprecedented. This is something that is happening in other communities in the country. Yes?
Absolutely. I don't even want to try and pretend like I didn't jack this from another community. I absolutely did. I think that with community placemaking, some of the best ideas are adapted from other communities. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're just finding things that worked in other communities and they're bringing them into their own.
And so this, again, and the reason why I'm saying this is because we'll get to the other point of the fact of what happened with your proposal, but this happens and this is successful in other communities, and this is something that people have supported and implemented.
That's correct.
Yes.
Even within the state of Wisconsin. I think that's important to know. And we'll get into the details of why it didn't work in the city of Green Bay in a little bit. But I did run up against from City Hall hearing again and again, oh, well, that city doesn't have our weather pattern, or that city's streets don't experience the same weather challenges that ours do. If they're in Wisconsin, they do.
Yes,
and communities in
definitely do.
Wisconsin have successfully done this. We were not able to do it here. And kind of the reason we got in touch was it's been 8 months since that soup event. And right before the last soup event, which happened several weeks ago in early December, I had written an op-ed in the paper kind of chronicling my experience in short and my frustrations with the city's unwillingness to consider pedestrian safety in their initiatives and their infrastructure development.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me because I have had the same experience with trying to put some traffic calming measures into areas around a school in my neighborhood and other parts of Green Bay, where really and truly, it's like there is not any sort of focus on this. They are not interested in even sometimes listening to the arguments. They're trying whatever they can to see what they can't do. Right now, there is a traffic study that was supposed to be done for speed feedback signs that was approved after months and months of work by Aldo Leopold School. That was approved last year with myself and a few other, Eric Genrick and a few other community members. We did a lot of hours, clocked in hours, and traffic committee meetings to get the speed feedback sign study put into play. And it has been over a year. Months ago, it was received and nothing. No reports, nothing. So really, it's not a priority. And you had mentioned in your op-ed some of the reasons why the city staff. Is that fair?
Yes.
So city staff, and that's what I ran into as well. This, to be clear, this hasn't even made it to the council floor. These are things that come from the top in the staff at City Hall that don't even get to be let out into a committee meeting.
Exactly.
At that point. And that is very important to mention because I feel like that's not something you hear much in the media as well. But these are significant changes in communities, in many communities that are great communities that need to happen. Because the average person, how old you are?
I'm 28.
Okay, so you're the example of who we want to draw and retain here.
Well, not you specifically.
Oh,
I think if you knew me a little better.
Yeah, I would agree that you are. You're the epitome of the person, right? And so this is something that is vital to a community.
That's what we say we want anyway.
Well, it's true. I mean, and then that room, that's not even debatable. You were approved by, and there was a lot of people there. I was there. Those people, they chose your project. So tell us what happened.
Everybody's dying to know now. What the hell went down?
What happened? Tell us.
So one of the flaws, and I will try and approach this from an unbiased perspective, one of the flaws of the SOUP project in its first reincarnation was that there were very few restrictions on what could be submitted. So you filled out a simple Google form with your idea, what you estimated the cost would be, why you thought it would benefit the downtown. The projects did have to be downtown. And a advisory committee selected 5 of finalists, and then it was voted on after you gave a brief presentation. So we quickly realized that 2 of the projects would have taken place in public right-of-way, my own, and another submitted project, which did, as far as I know, attempt to move forward and ran into, surprise, Public Works backlash. So by not having restrictions on submitting right-of-way items, unless that person who submitted the idea had already tried to go through City Hall, they may or may not know whether it would work. I specifically did not go through City Hall prior to this. I actually thought if I get some public support from this process and positive media exposure, if I were to win, that might carry a little more weight into City Hall so I can really justify this is not just me. There is a lot of community members that came out, supported this event, and financially, even at a small dollar amount, invested in this happening. We want to see this happen, and it doesn't cost the city anything because we have the funds. So I came from that approach, and over 8 months, I had seemingly countless meetings with not only city staff, but also community members who really identified with this being an issue, that it is not safe to cross the street on foot downtown. And particularly in the intersections which are not protected, which there are many. We have wide streets in our downtown. We have a lot of one-way streets. Both of those engineering facts contribute to higher speeds and a lack of awareness. We also have a lot of, because of the one-ways, there's a lot of streets where you're making left-hand turns, where you're yielding to oncoming traffic. That is the perfect situation to be inattentive to a pedestrian that's crossing the street that you're turning onto.
And one that's walking, let's be real. How about the ones that are in a wheelchair or disabled?
Right.
I mean, those are the people as well. They are definitely not being served with what's there.
So we have a city that is very much designed for the automobile, and this idea and this project really challenged that. This was saying, no, we want to focus specifically on an infrastructure piece, one that is paint-based, that pedestrians use, and that really need to be a reminder to automobiles that they should not be, creeping up into it to make a right-hand turn on red, that they should be stopping, they should be respectful, and they should understand how the rules work of as soon as someone steps out into that crosswalk, and if you can stop, you must stop. That is not at all the norm in our community. So I went through all these meetings with different community members, came up with a series of compromises after learning that my initial idea would not work. The reasons my initial idea were not approved by the city were numerous, but in short, many of them had to do with maintenance. The idea of once we put paint down on the asphalt, how often is it going to need to be maintained? When is it going to wear down and not look high quality anymore? There are also concerns about its effectiveness. Which,
we can actually repaint that, right?
Well, but who's going to pay? If it's a one-time grant-funded opportunity, who's going to pay
what's
for
the
it to be
number?
repainted?
What's the number on that? Do we have a number for what that would cost, say, for one intersection?
For one intersection, I had initially quoted it around $4. And we'd assume that it'd be $250 in paint. You have to use...
You said 4, like 4,000?
4 intersections.
Oh,
4 intersections to fit that $1,000 price tag.
But it's more than that because they have to have Public Works come out and close the street down.
Oh my God!
So, and that
that's significantly more. You have to pay somebody to, the truck to go do that, and they got to pull away from something else.
Or if it was an art project, could Public Works do it, or does that mean that you have to have Public Works there supervising it while volunteers do it? I mean, the logistics alone, being that it was a city-backed initiative, I think all of these projects were relying on a little bit of cooperation from City Hall to waive some of those maybe supervision fees or permitting fees to make the project a reality.
But other cities do this.
Other cities have done this.
Let's reiterate that.
Right. And it's actually in many other communities been a project championed by neighborhood associations. Something that either
so somebody just needs to pick up the bill for $1,000.
I don't think that would be a problem.
No, I don't either. But you have to have your ducks in a row. We ran into that with the benches on Broadway.
Right.
We had to. I had to say, I will take care of this myself. I will sign that in blood.
Right.
And it was not easy to get that through, but the pushback is reasonable, really, if you think about it.
Because I think one of the reasons they had...
there are more reasons. I thought that was a reasonable one. Then we got into just how liable, scared the city of Green Bay is. So I might reiterate, other Wisconsin communities have done this. And I was presented...
to keep saying that. We have to.
I was presented with a memo from the Federal Highway Administration, which my understanding on this has been disconnected, but I guess if any federal dollars go towards a road, then you must adhere to not only the local and state governing rules for that roadway, but also the federal ones. And there was one memo that dictated that crosswalks must maintain the white zebra stripes and things should not distract from that, and that you could only use earth tone paints. Now, there are some protective measures against paint colors. The blue that is known for handicap spots, you can't use that blue in other contexts. You can't use the red that demarcates a fire lane in other contexts, and I understand that. Then there were the concerns about the texture of the paints. Paint on crosswalks typically has some sort of gravel or sand-like composite added to it so that it has a little bit more texture so that you don't slip on it when it's wet. Then the city did come back with a few compromises, and they said, well, why don't you do the cement crosswalks where you have colored cement? That automatically blows the price way above and beyond our $1,000 price tag. We did talk about potentially doing paint projects on the sidewalk because the sidewalk doesn't fall under the highway guidelines. Now, those are guidelines. They're not restrictions. They're guidelines that are suggested, but many communities choose not to follow them.
Because, again, we're going to say it one more time. Other communities have
in
done
Wisconsin
this.
have done this. My favorite of all, well, actually, there were two. My favorite for the paint project excuse was that young toddlers and young children would be distracted by painted designs and would stop in the middle of the crosswalk, causing a safety hazard.
Because my 3-year-old would, constantly cross the street by himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So devil's advocate on that, though. I think that some of these other communities might not be following the rules. And we hold our public staff accountable. We'd be like, that's your job to know the rules, and you didn't follow it, if this thing gets smacked down at some point in the future. So they're very scared to move, and they're not overstaffed. I don't think Public Works is overstaffed. So, they are kind of pushing and pulling from other projects then.
That's true.
So.
Well, and that's where my next compromise I felt like really should have been able to happen. So I said, all right, I understand. I've worked with city governments before. In 2 of my past roles, I actually managed a downtown organization for 3 years and worked closely with Public Works in another Brown County municipality. And I actually worked for a city government for a while. So I get it. I'm not, an enemy of local government. I have a master's degree in public administration. I understand the nature of the bureaucratic beast. And I respect it. I really do. Begrudgingly sometimes. My next suggestion was that we look to install signage. And a great example actually with the Aldo Leopold project, they had temporary signage that was placed in the middle of the street that was a reminder to yield to pedestrians or stop for pedestrians.
On Monroe.
Exactly. And you can buy these signs through highway supply companies. You can buy them online. I looked it up. They're about $300 a pop. And you can either buy weighted ones that can easily be removed as you need to, maybe for snow removal, or you can buy ones that are actually connected into the ground. And I proposed this and said, I've seen them used over at Aldo Leopold and other Brown County communities, including most notably De Pere, has these placed prominently in unprotected intersections in the downtown. I don't know what the science is on whether they work or not, but it definitely sends a strong message that pedestrians do have rights and that vehicles need to respect that. So the reason that we couldn't do that was it would have to be removed day and night. I could not stay out overnight. I never really got an answer on why. And then there was, again, the fear of liability that a vehicle might hit the sign. And then what? And my immediate response was, why are we so worried about a vehicle hitting a plastic sign and not a person when that has happened?
Priorities.
Right. So it's
that would be
very clear disconnect.
And that would be their fault. And they or their insurance should have to pay for that.
So this is
clear.
What I encountered. So eventually, after months and months and months of this, I was kind of honestly embarrassed that I hadn't been able to get anywhere.
I have to throw this in here because you may know that. You might not know this. You might not, but you might. I'm not sure. So you just referenced that Aldo Leopold sign. That
it came down, right? Or somebody hit it?
No.
I thought the school wouldn't allow the janitor to go out and put it on
Here's
anymore.
what happened. First of all, and this has to be said. So we had this approved. The sign sat in the closet at the Green Bay Public School District because the principal wouldn't commit to having someone bring it in and out every day. But once the pressure was put on, she then decided that she was going to be part of that safety for her school, and she did that. So, but only after the pressure was put on. So then the janitor, yes, was going in and out and putting the sign in every day. 3 times the janitor was almost killed doing that. And then the Green Bay Public School District decided that they didn't want the liability there anymore, so they pulled him out of it. Right. Well, and there are other communities that from what I understand, De Pere, they have them out there permanently.
I don't think they're out in the winter because of snow removal.
Not in the winter, but they
are
are
out the other 9-ish months of the year.
Right, exactly, which is really, the majority of the time. So again, to reiterate, other communities do this. What is wrong with us? And us meaning the city of Green Bay.
So to wrap up the saga of the soup grant, around December, I was at the point of embarrassment that I'd had.
Write that down, the saga of the soup.
That I'd had no progress. I went back to YPAC and said, listen, and I tried really hard to put on a positive face. I had not shared my experiences in detail with anyone because I didn't want to throw a potential relationship with the city under the bus. And I kind of gave an ultimatum because I realized having a drop dead date was the only way to get anything conclusive done. So I did throw a third compromise into the mix. I'd reached out to the Green Bay Police Department about their Operation Frogger program, which is an education/enforcement program that is typically done on unprotected intersections outside the downtown. They have several I think it's 5 officers at a time, work for several hours. They do issue citations for cars that blow past their plant, which is a pedestrian basically walking back and forth in the same crosswalk for 3 hours at a time. Those that do not stop within that 100-foot frame are issued a citation. And I actually really like this part. Those who do stop, their license plates are written down and they were mailed a coupon for a free pizza with a letter that reminds them that they're a good citizen and they followed the law and to please share with their friends, kind of a carrot for actually following the law, which never happens. So it's a neat project.
Because as humans, we need incentive.
Sometimes we do. And it got a lot of publicity. So I reached out to them, and amazingly enough, the cost of a frog operation was $1,000. So I had reached out to the police department, said, I'm really interested in doing this. If I go back to City Hall, express my frustration at not being able to use the dollars for my original project, and I'm able to get a match, I'd like to host 2 downtown Frogger events to just bring awareness to the issue in the downtown context. Hosting these downtown is a challenge because of the increased traffic. They typically do these not during rush hour. They're on off hours, so it's a little easier to pull over vehicles that need to be, et cetera. So they were open to it, and they said if we got the money, even if we only had the $1,000, they were open to it, and they wanted to be kept in the loop. So I went back to Soup and said, here's the 2 ideas I brought to the city that were rejected. Here's my 3rd idea, which is partnering with the police department to still focus on the issue of pedestrian safety, but from an education and enforcement context. I said, I'd like to do this, or I would just like to return the money to the pot and good luck to someone else, because I don't want to just sit on the money and be seen as unaccountable. I want to be able to say, I gave it my best and I'm working against a system that the money's not the issue. Mm-mm. The culture is. And the YPAC committee discussed it and decided to just grant the money to the runner-up from that program. And we made that decision in advance of the second Soup event. I was out of town during that event, but I did record a video message that they showed at the event that kind of explained in short. And YPAC had actually really curtailed my remarks. They were pretty clear about what I could or couldn't say on their platform. So I had said I will agree to do a modified interview that still makes this program look good. But you should know that as soon as I'm not, able to use that money, I will be sending a more honest and accurate portrayal to the Press Gazette, which I thought they would tuck in like a Wednesday issue. No, it was leading in the Sunday op-ed section. I was actually out of town, and I all of a sudden started getting a lot of texts and calls and emails. Then I realized it was in the Sunday paper. So it brought good attention to the issue and the challenge, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from other community members since then. So here we are of how we can continue to bring positive change to Green Bay with or without this specific grant.
Well, first of all, we need leaders that actually understand how important and how vital this is for our city and its future. And we do not have that right now.
I think we should make them all ride their bikes down Walnut Street.
I would love that.
Because, I see both sides. I love driving my car. In the winter, I don't want to ride a bike. And I get it, and we are very car centric, and we have to be because public transit is not great here and whatever, right?
But that's all part of it.
It is, but
that's another thing that they should be investing in.
But you can't do, it's like you got to do. How do you do these things all at the same time?
How do you got to do it?
And it is a chicken or the egg situation. Public transit is a whole different basket. But I agree with forcing the user experience. The city of Appleton, who Green Bay cringes at the thought of being compared to, they underwent a project last year between their downtown organization and one of their alderpersons who is in a wheelchair. And they partnered with a company out of Evansville, Illinois, and is it Evanston, suburban Chicago. Yep. And they actually had city leadership take a tour of the downtown in wheelchairs. And these were people not in wheelchairs. And it was meant to expose them to the experience as a non-mobile user of their downtown to recognize who was accessible maybe by letter of the law, but certainly not within the spirit of the law. And it really framed the conversation for them of, wow, we're not the accessible, welcoming city we thought we were. We need to make changes. And unfortunately, I don't think some of the leaders in City Hall, some of the leaders on council do experience the city in the way that not only young millennials use the city, but the way that retiring empty nesters and those who choose an urban lifestyle really respond to their surroundings, and I don't think it's understood.
Well, and I don't think what's also they're not understanding, again, how vital this is for our future, our city's future, for people to want to stay here and live here and raise families here. And, when we talk about anything that we do, we need to look at people like yourself who are going to choose us. We want to always think about people who are going to choose our city and continue to choose our city and not move away. And those people do not understand that this is something, investing in walkable, bikeable neighborhoods and being able to, take yourself around the city safely is sometimes literally a deal breaker. It's a quality of life issue. It's something that the mayor talks about, but he doesn't have any leadership with this at all. He doesn't. And so I think that's where it starts. And then you go down to the city staff. You have city traffic engineers who put together bogus video during a traffic committee meeting to show something to make sure that there is no way in hell that what these people want you to invest in is going to happen. But, there needs to be a certain amount of attention brought to this because it's so important that we do start investing in this.
I agree. And I think, like I said earlier, Green Bay is a city designed for cars, and it is not ready or adapting to several shifts within our culture. One of them being we have seen a resurgence in urban living. Downtown has revitalized significantly in the last 2 decades. We've seen a housing boom in downtown Green Bay that is unprecedented. And what are we going to do with all these new residents once they're here? Is that finally the critical mass that'll be the tipping point to have city officials realize we have not built a city that's responsive to this level of urban living? We have an aging population, which is not going to be able to live out in the suburbs forever in homes that are not built for someone who can't navigate stairs. We're going to see more people aging groups move back to the city. And then we have obviously the desire to attract young people who have expressed again and again a desire to live in urban, walkable locations. Not to mention our technology shifts. The way we get around is going to change. Not only are there people who choose to walk or to ride their bike or to take public transit. I don't personally know anyone that uses public transit in Green Bay, but there are people that do it. And then our technical innovations in driving, such as car sharing, self-driving vehicles, using ride shares in lieu of owning a car. These are all coming changes, and our city is not built to accommodate them.
And it's interesting. They take all this TIF money, right? And they put together these projects, and they approve of these projects, and then they build them. And then they wonder, well, someone's going to have to want to live there. And you probably want to live there and not, you're going to basically take away the right to have, a significant yard, to have, you're going to have more neighbors. It's going to be more dense in population. You're going to, you're living with a lot of people. And so in order to want to do that, those people typically don't want to have to drive everywhere. They want to walk and bike everywhere. So you're going to have projects that, you might have condos or apartments that don't, the vacancy is not where it needs to be because you don't have the infrastructure to draw these people there. That is a huge portion of how that works in a city, and they don't get it.
And I think it is a chicken or the egg question. Do we build the housing first and then adapt, or do
I think we have to?
Well, that's what's
because
happening.
That's where you get the pressure, right?
But that's what's happening. That is what they're doing. I mean, that's.
But I'm
and
not
I think
convinced
slowly
the pressure
there's going to be more pressure, and it drives me crazy that they don't take any of these things into account. So there is more biking, but I mean, they don't even talk about the self-driving car thing. It takes them 5 years to get things done. In 5 years, there will be self-driving cars.
It took us 8 months to get food trucks
crazy.
approved. Do you think they're going to talk about driverless cars? I mean,
and when are we?
I've never seen a food
credit
truck.
Cards at the ramp. I mean, come on. I'm thrilled. I'm probably the only person that'll say how thrilled I am about the parking app, the Passport parking app, so I actually can use my card to pay for parking. But why can't I use it in the ramp? Why is it still cash only in the ramp?
But again, see so this is what you're talking about. This matters to you. This is what matters to people that want to possibly come and live here. And unless they understand that, and they
or
make
visit
decisions.
here. We get a few 100,000 people out to Lambeau Field every year. We would like some of those people to come downtown, wouldn't we?
Right. I'm not surprised I know my focus was specifically on the pedestrian challenge, but we do have a bike challenge too in this community.
It's
Biking
terrible.
is very much seen as recreation and not a viable form of transport.
But even if it is, I don't feel safe driving down Walnut Street on my bike. I go up on the sidewalk.
I'm on the sidewalk as
which
well.
is not legal.
Right.
And I'm not a fearful kind of guy. I take risks and I'm, kind of freewheeling. I don't want to go over that bridge because I'm afraid somebody's not going to see me and they're going to be, driving like I would.
But okay, so we can agree. The priority is not for making this community more walkable and bikeable. It's not out there.
So how do we do that?
And if you look at the way that the stadium tax money has been, allocated and spent, and now they keep chipping away at infrastructure money. It's like, yeah, you know what? People aren't loud enough about that, and we really don't understand that that's important and vital. So we're just going to secretly keep taking more money. And the reality is, what are they doing by doing that? These problems aren't going to go away because you have a fancy new, apartment structure. There's still going to be a need there.
Or a fancy pool. Or a fancy stadium.
Right. But I mean, to some degree, infrastructure has never been a sexy issue, and nobody believes that it is. But it's a necessary, vital piece of your community. And I am so... When I was at that event and you had this idea, honestly, like pedestrian safety is something I've been working on forever with people. And it was like, oh my God, yes, a young person that has an idea. And the last thing we want to do is shut those people down. It's like, what are they doing? How can they continue to do this and think that people are going to want to choose to live here? I want the answer to that
and
question.
You know what? And I don't think we should give up on the crosswalk thing. I think that's a great idea. The benches on Broadway are awesome. I think that was great. I think doing that in some crosswalks. Let's find some that don't have federal funds. Let's just.
And the reality is, you have young people that come into your city that have ideas that put themselves out there publicly with these ideas, and
they will do the painting for free.
And you're going to squash their ideas because you are worried that a child will be distracted. I mean, you have to come up with something better than that.
That's preposterous.
Well, and I think that's what really struck me more so than this specific project. It was the unwillingness to consider an idea. And I mean, I'm being pretty loud about this now, but for 8 months, which if you know me is a long time for me to keep my mouth shut, I was exceptionally cordial and polite and followed the rules, even with people saying like, oh, we'll just go out in the middle of the night and do it. I like the idea of tactical urbanism in theory. In practice, I have always worked for the government, and it's not really a great idea for me to be engaged in it. But I said, no, I really want to demonstrate that as an active citizen, you can have an idea, and with enough hard work, Mr. Smith goes to Washington, you can get it done. And then I realized 8 months later that was just complete BS and it didn't happen.
I think we can get it done. I think we just need to get the right people on board with supporting it.
But the message is sent to me as a young person that was trying to navigate, the civic system and bring change on an issue I truly felt passionate about and had other people supporting was, no, we're not interested. Go away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just no interest in engaging. And it really sent, I know I've told several people this since I personally don't live in the city of Green Bay. This circumstance guaranteed that I will not until there's significant change in City Hall, because I can only imagine if I have a problem as a community member, I don't want to have to go back to City Hall.
That's a liability.
Did you talk to the mayor about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't.
I mean, he had some other stuff going on.
Yeah,
recently.
But that was really recent, though. So did you talk to him a while back?
I did, and he supported the idea. But even they realized that they were going up against a public works department that had no interest in pursuing this. And they even backed off it and said, "Well,
that's leadership."
I mean, they came back and said, "What if you paint an alleyway, or what if we give you this?" Like cul-de-sac end of an alleyway to paint. It's like, well, that doesn't help pedestrian issues. You're embracing the public arts idea. And I love that we're becoming a city that's more open to public arts. I think it's a little bit more dictated and structured than public art usually is, where it's a little more organic, but we're getting there. They embraced the public arts part, but wanted to sweep the pedestrian issue under the rug, when what I really wanted was an admission that, yes, this is an issue. We should do something, whether it's infrastructure or enforcement or education. And there was not an interest in doing any of the above.
Yeah, let's be real. We still have lead pipes. I have them. They're all over the place. We still have lead pipes. We still have storm sewer problems. We still have pedestrian issues. The fact remains is that the city of Green Bay leadership they do not make this a priority. It is not a priority, and it has to be a priority if we're going to go anywhere. Ashwaubenon, guaranteed. The energy now has left Green Bay, right? It's in Ashwaubenon. It's in De Pere. These people understand. They're willing to work with people that come with ideas and try to make it work. It's like, how do you do everything you possibly can to not make these ideas work? You should be like, how can we make this work? You know what? This seems like a great idea. You know, not only is this is beautification of an area as well. It's not necessarily just for safety. This is something that draws people to you. And until the day that they understand that, we're going to be playing catch up again and again and again.
And it's something that makes your community unique. It's a project that can give you a sense of self-pride or just kind of bring you back to your senses in your urban environment. And it was turned down, and I'm disappointed that that was the fact.
Well, and think about it this way. You, one person that did this, okay, now you may have friends or other community members that have other ideas, that the last thing they're going to do is they're going to come forward and try to go through what you did, put all that time, energy, resources into it. And now what's going to happen? It's not going to happen. We're going to sit here and we're going to have 13,000 sports bars to go to. We're still not going to have answers and resolutions to our infrastructure problems. And people are going to move. They're going to leave.
No, they're going to move here because we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean,
in all seriousness, I am not from this area originally. I moved here originally because my parents had moved here while I was in college. And, you know, as any millennial, I wanted to move into my parents' basement. It just happened to be located in Green Bay, Wisconsin now. So I moved out here. I spent my entire life in Metro New York City in very walkable, urban, dense communities. I lived in the suburbs for a few years in college.
With toddlers that aren't distracted.
Right. A miraculously low amount of toddler crosswalk.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Toddler crosswalk fatalities. I moved out here, and the reason I love it and the reason I stayed here is because I felt like I could be impactful. And I do think that the Green Bay area is a perfect size metro area that if you have the energy and the passion to make something happen, then you can make it happen. I was a Main Street director for 3 years down the road in De Pere, and I really was able to make things happen. And for me, that was incredibly fulfilling. It wasn't so important to me that I had, you know, a Whole Foods and Soul Cycle, you know, some of these larger city amenities. They're down the road if I want them. I can go to Milwaukee, I can go to Chicago, but I had the ability to bring change and influence and make a difference, which was really important to me. And it's not just me saying that. You know, I brought a couple books with me here today, and two of my favorites that are great community placemaking toolkits are by Peter K. Guyama. He wrote Love Where You Live and For the Love of Cities. And he talks about this. One of the best selling points small cities have for millennials or for retired people who are looking for a way to get re-engaged in their city as they've exited the workforce is the opportunity to bring change. And while we have great grassroots organizations in our community, unfortunately, at some point you have to interact with City Hall. Mm-hmm. And when you do, God bless you. Because it may and push you out of your interests completely.
Well, and that's a liability. So, I mean, let's be real. The PR nightmare that is City Hall right now, at this point, it would be in their best interest to maybe, you know, throw a few bones at people that have great ideas.
To do things people actually want?
Right.
No, we can't do
that. But I mean, I think that's, you know, and my hope right now is that, you know, it's City Hall to me is crashing and burning, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be ruins at some point. And my hope is that people like you who have these amazing ideas that, again, let's reiterate, work in other communities that are very close by, that you continue to come to the table with these things so that we can have this kind of city we want to live in. I don't want to move. I want to live here. I would hope my daughter, you know, would choose to be here. Again, people that want to choose to be here. That's our market. That's who we look at. That's who we target. And right now, they're not doing that at all. Not at all.
We're out of time. If anybody would like to follow up with you to maybe take up the mantle of this, the art crosswalk thing or some of the other initiatives you're doing, how would you like them to get in touch with you?
Sure. They can feel free to find me. I'm actually most active on Twitter. That's kind of my favorite place to be. I'm at Ally in Wisconsin, and they could just send me an email there as well. It's allyinwisconsin@gmail.com.
Nice.
So
okay.
you're not going to give up on this idea, right?
Not with that handle. I got to stay here now.
That's right.
Oh, I don't know if it's available in another state.
It probably is. Yeah.
No, I really do love living here, and I've had a really positive experience over the last 5 years. This is a setback, but I'm hoping that this experience can maybe activate a little bit more grassroots.
You're a visionary person, and we need more people that are visionary. We need more people who work at what can we do, not what can we not do. So please, please, please don't leave us.
Yeah. Don't leave. So that wraps up politicalradar.com/55, episode number 55. That wraps up episode number 55. I'll get it right eventually. Well, it was confusing because we had a confusion between the 55 and the 56. I was worried more about that. And I want to give a shout out to Joshua for noticing that we had a little technical issue on one of the episodes. We have a small staff, small funding, and we try to do some big things here. And so that was awesome to catch that. And also Gina noticed a typo on one of the episodes too. So that was great. If you would like to talk more about this issue or anything else, go to the Political Radar community on Facebook.
I'd also like to give a shout out to Joshua Schwalbe, who has been a very, very committed member of the community working on bike and pedestrian issues as well. I know he doesn't always get noticed and mentioned, but he's committed to this. And there's a lot of people out there, clearly. We just they need to listen.
And subscribe.
Yeah, that too.
Subscribe on politicalradar.com. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can subscribe on iTunes and some other places too. All right, that's it.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.